Hey guys, this is Mel, and I'm back to talk about Shadowhunters, episode 217, titled A Dark Reflection, which premiered Monday, July 24th, 2017 on Freeform and on the 25th on Netflix. And guys, I'm recording this on July 29th. I actually watched the episode a few hours ago. Kind of couldn't do it earlier though, but I want to talk about it now. But huge spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the episode already, please go do so first, then come back and see what I have to say about the episode. Otherwise, my other video reminders are up on screen right now. Take a moment to look over those. Huge spoiler alert, guys. So with that said, let's start with the 10-minute clock and let's begin with what happened in this episode. So timeline-wise, I'm thinking it's the next day, but it really all depends on how often Clary has been having her nightmares. If it's been a recurring nightmare, then obviously it's been a few nights at least since what happened at Lake Lynn. But otherwise, I'm thinking it's the next day after their trip to Idris. So there's that. The huge episode reminder, though, is the fact that we are searching for the mortal mirror, which is the third mortal instrument that we have been introduced to. Third and final one, I should say. So first moments of the episode is showing Clary seeing herself in Lake Lynn as she tries to reach the surface. And then she sees a reflection of herself drowning. She's fighting to resurface, yet she can't. Now this is a nightmare that Jace wakes her up from. And from there they talk about how what they learned on their mission to Lake Lynn and all that. So, episode breakdown for all the different storylines. I picked up on three major storylines going on in this episode. First one being the race to find the mortal mirror. Second one being Max training with Isabel and Simon. And the third one being Valentine forcing Cleophas to fix the soul sword, which is kind of connected to the whole finding the mortal mirror thing. But I'll leave it at that for now. So let's move on to the first storyline, was the fact that we're racing to find the mortal mirror. So we find out specifically in this episode that collecting the three mortal instruments together can be used to summon the angel Raziel, the first angel to create the Shadowhunters, as we come to know. This summoning has never been done before, and when it does happen, though, legend says that he would grant one wish. So Valentine wants to use that one wish to extinguish the downworld. So short version, Dot manages to find the mirror and she gives it to Clary. It's actually a little compact mirror, if you will, with a whole bunch of runes on top of it. Through the mortal mirror, she realizes that her dreams of her drowning in Lake Lynn are actually visions, as the mirror adds another component to the nightmare itself. Otherwise, don't know specifically what the mirror actually does. I can't remember them from the books. As I've only read up to first three, probably 10 years ago. So there's that. Also in this storyline, we get Clary and Jace actually being confronted by Jonathan. Now, I have decided this. Whenever we see Jonathan's true form, which is the burnt flesh and everything, I'll call him Jonathan. But if we actually see him in the face of Sebastian Verloc, then I'll call him Sebastian. So I'm still going to be using the two names, but just know that they're in reference to the same person that I'm referring to, even though the characters don't know exactly if it's the same person. So I'll leave it right there. Second storyline, though, we pretty much see Isabel giving training Max, more specifically having Simon help out to kind of hone in his reflexes and skills and all that. Especially when she finds out from Alec that the Clave has deemed Max ready to get his first mission, since apparently his simulation results are off the charts, according to Alec. So in the end, though, Izzy gives Max her blessing to accept his first Clave mission. She actually tells him to go report back to them first thing the next day. So there's that. Third storyline, though, we see Valentine using a mind control serum on Cleophas to try to get her to fix the soul sword from Clary's deactivation rune. So despite the mind control, Cleophas can't fix something she's never seen before, which is Clary's rune. But throughout all this, Cleophas manages to escape long enough to send a fire message out to Luke, which he tells Magnus about, which then gets Magnus to confront Alec about the fact that the soul sword was never in the Clave's hands and that Valentine now has it. This causes a rift between the two of them, which leads to Magnus deciding that they, as the Downworld community, need to tell the Seelie Queen even though Luke doesn't trust her and he never has. So there's that little chaos going on over there. Now, the last moments of the episode show Max confronting Sebastian, who is rifling around in Alec's office, and he confronts him on the fact that Sebastian is actually Jonathan Morgenstern. And Max knows this because he actually found a stray hair that belonged to Jonathan that was in Clary's JC box, and he was tracking that piece of hair, which led him to Sebastian. So that's where the episode ended off. So character-wise, again, Max Lightwood returns for his training with Isabel, and the fact that he's the one to really who discovered that Sebastian is actually the missing Jonathan. So there's that. We also briefly got introduced to a warlock named Elliot Norse. Find out that he's actually one of Jocelyn's old best friends that Clary remembers as a kid, and he is actually the protector of the mortal mirror that Jocelyn had entrusted him with. So there's that. After he was killed, though, or not killed, after he killed himself so that he can't be used to find the mortal mirror, that protector role goes and transfers to Dot. So she immediately goes to Clary. She's the only one she trusts, and she actually uses the sigil she got from that protection rune to find the mortal mirror. So there's that. Speaking of runes, though, the only one that's really used in this episode is the tracking rune, specifically repeatedly brought up between Max and Isabel. So there's that. We also see it being used by Sebastian when he clacks Clary through the use of her hairband. So there's that as well. Now, tidbit-wise, though, we get Simon asking Maya out with a paddle boat date. She declines, though, only for later on Isabel to interrupt and kind of figure out like what the deal is and have Maya think about a few things before Maya goes and agrees to have that paddle boat date with Simon. So there's that. Also, we see Sebastian being certain that Clary loves him as they are family. Valentine tries to sway him otherwise before he really gets reminded of the fact that this is his demon-blooded son he's angering at the moment. So there's that. Also, we see Sebastian initiating a kiss with Clary, which she ends quickly, despite it not being an appropriate time for such things. So there's that. And then also we see in this episode that Sebastian is a lot faster too. He makes reference to the fact that traveling by rooftop is a lot faster for him, and we see when he's in his true form that his movements are very similar to how a vampire moves at full speed, I guess you could say. And we actually see Sebastian's eyes turn black during very, very emotionally charged moments when he's in the facade of Sebastian, and then while he's in his true form, his eyes are automatically black, and it's just the true moments you tap into a bit of humanity in him, then they will turn back to the regular eyes he has. So there's that. So moving on now to the most shocking moment of the episode, I think for me it has to be the fact that Jocelyn had managed to hide both the Mortal Cup and the Mortal Mirror for so many years. I mean, I thought it was just the one. I don't really remember her hiding the second of the three instruments from the books, but I just thought that was a huge feat in itself, how anyone could even realize that she had done such a thing. Does that mean no one in the Shadowhunter community knew where the Mortal Mirror was and it was just lost to them? That's like another question right there, though. Moving on, though, to top 3 favorite moments. First one I'd have to say is Clary wanting to give Jonathan a chance. I mean, like she said before, Jonathan is her brother. He's the last... Technically, he's not the last family she has left, because she does still have Valentine, but she's trying to hold on to the last shred of something that she has, because again, Jonathan is the only last connection, family-wise, to her mother. Valentine has no connection to Jocelyn, but Clary and Jonathan still have that blood connection to their mother. So that's one way as to why she's really fighting to give Jonathan a chance or really try to save him for whatever influence Valentine may have over him. And it was very interesting just to see her saying these words to Sebastian, who she is unaware of the fact that he is her brother, in a sense. So it was always very interesting to see those types of moments, especially now that it's very clear to us as the audience that he is her brother. It's just very interesting to see not only her views on it, but also his subtle reactions to it. Like, I mean, he can't outright show that he's affected by this topic of conversation because he's, according to her, not directly connected to it or not connected to it at all. But we know that he's more connected than ever. So it's very interesting to see how that type of scene is played out between the two of them. Another favorite of mine has to be Cleophias' attempt to escape. She was just badass in not only escaping from her cell. I was really proud that she managed to send out a message before, like, as the first thing she did, because if she hadn't, no one would have known, even though she ended up getting captured afterwards, though. But she put up one hell of a fight, and I'm glad we got to see it, because we always hear these legends about the Iron Sisters and all of that, and the only time we actually see them in action was in when we are truly first introduced to them in the Citadel, and during that whole fight scene practice sparring thing they had, though. So it was really great to see her actually in the field and in action. So I really like that. Another favorite of mine was just Simon in general. More specifically, his little comment about not knowing who Jedis are, and is he not training Max about the more important things, which are Star Wars and stuff like that. So that whole dynamic was pretty funny. And then also just hearing Simon sing again. I really like it when he sings, and I kind of wish we got to hear more of the song, but I do understand just a little sneak peek is good enough too. So there's that. Moving on, though, to top 3 peeved moments. First one is the fact that we got a rift between Alec and Magnus. That fight just spewing over. Luke tried to calm Magnus down and have him see the fact that Alec is on their side, but Magnus was just not seeing that, and it just really sucks that they've both been put in a very difficult position. Because on the one hand, Alec was kind of playing his, like, professionally, he did the right thing, but then on a personal level, he didn't. He did lie to Magnus, so it's definitely a very touchy subject for the two. So that I didn't like seeing. So there's that. Another peeve I had was the fact that Sebastian kissed Clary. I mean, well, from Clary's point of view, I didn't like the scene, because from her point of view, it looks like he took advantage of her, because she was really emotional over the fact that her brother is out there being manipulated, and if there's a chance to save her, she wants to do that, otherwise she's going to have to let him go, type of thing. And she was getting really emotional about losing someone else that she's barely gotten to know, or losing someone else that could be someone important to her. So from Clary's point of view, Sebastian kissing her in that moment could look like he kind of took advantage of her emotional state. But then on Sebastian's side of things, I don't like the kiss because of the fact that he just kissed his sister, which also puts into question that, okay, how exactly does he think Clary loves him? I mean, it's tricky, because is Sebastian kissing her in the guise of Sebastian, or is it actually him as Jonathan kissing her? Because then it has me also questioning, okay, in what way do you love your sister? Do you love her like a sister, or are you harboring feelings that you're not supposed to hold for your sister, type of thing? So on Sebastian's view of the kiss, that's a whole other can of worms, which has me, I mean, it looks great, but the fact that you know where these two coming from, and especially where he's coming from, and the fact that he knows a lot more than she does and kind of not telling her about it, it's kind of, I remember reading it in the books when it happened, that when you read it from the book, since it's from Clary's point of view, you really get a different description as to how wrong of a feeling it was. And I don't know if at that time she knew he was her brother or not, but I still kept that same feeling when I was watching it. It's just the timing, and just like Sebastian's timing was off, and the fact that we know for certain that they're related, it's just no. So there's that. Moving on to what moment will I remember most when I look back on this episode. The introduction of the mortal mirror. That's going to be one as well. Also, another thing, though, why that kiss bugged me. Because also, because I don't believe during the whole time that we thought Jace and Clary were brother and sister on the show, they never shared a kiss. So they never went that far to actually do the whole implied incest kiss, because they just kept their distance in that regard and had to stifle their feelings that they were starting to grow for each other. Here, though, one of them actually knows, and they actually are the one that initiated it. So that's kind of another head scratcher right there too. So I'll just move on to random questions. First one being, how did Clary know about the mortal mirror? I mean, I would understand during that whole scene between Clary, Dot, and Alec and Jace explaining about the mark that appeared on Dot's arm. I would understand if Dot was explaining that whole bit about Jocelyn and Elliot and the whole marker protection sigil thing. I would understand it if it just solely came from her. But because Clary was also knowledgeable about it and supplying half of that explanation to Alec and Jace, I don't understand how she could, because that would mean that she had known all along that her mom was hiding the mortal mirror and all that, which wouldn't make sense unless Jocelyn had told Clary sometime after Clary had known that she was a Shadowhunter and shortly after Jocelyn had waken up or something. I don't see how that would fit. So I was like confused as the fact that like, how the hell does she know about the mortal mirror? Why didn't she bring it up earlier, or that she had known, or that her mom had done anything about it? It's just like, it's weird. It was very, very weird trying to figure out how exactly Clary knew so much about the topic when explaining it to two Shadowhunters who grew up knowing about the legend of the mortal mirror. So it's like, that's a confusion right there for me. Another question. Do you think Maya's reference of losing control in regards to the last guy who broke her heart is referring to that maybe she had transformed when she was near him? Maybe she was the one that maybe the whole breaking hearts thing is because she accidentally killed him by wolfing out on him. Maybe something as tragic as that. Otherwise, I don't see why else she might pull away from Simon, because I don't think anything like superficial broken heart type of thing that us humans would deal with would be an issue why she would pull away from giving Simon a chance. So there, in that regards. So there's that. Another question is, how long has it been since How long has it been since Simon ended things with Clary? I mean, that answer really affects how I feel about him actually asking Maya out. So there's that. Truly sorry about stumbling over my words. I'm recording at like 1 a.m. for me right now. So there's that. But moving on to my last question. If no one has been able to summon the Angel of Brazil, then shouldn't the locations of the 3 mortal instruments be a lot harder to come across? Because when Cleophas said that summoning the Angel of Brazil has never been done, I'm left with the impression that it's never been done because no one has ever found the 3 mortal instruments and they have not reunited them. That would make sense. However, in less than a year, because I think season 1 and season 2, it's taking over the span of a few months, if at all, Valentine has managed to locate all 3 items. I mean, like, what has truly stopped him from doing this previously? And it can't be because Jocelyn managed to hide 2 of them. I mean, what happened to before she managed to get her own hands on the 2 instruments to begin with? So there is that. Also, if she managed to have the 2 instruments and hide them, did she have them at the same time? Because if so, she could have easily, or how easy is it to get the soul sword? Because then she could have summoned Brazil and done with the whole wish thing and then incapacitate Valentine or something like that. I don't know. Anyways, let's move on from that question to predictions. So based off the promo for 218, I picked up on these key moments after watching the promo a few times. So I see Max throwing a knife at Sebastian. I see Jace telling Clary that Max solved the glamour that Jonathan has been using to impersonate one of their own. I see another part where Luke announces that it's time for new rules. I'm assuming he says that to his pack, his wolf pack. I also see Magnus and Alec in bed together, which has me confused due to the fight they had in this episode. But anyways, we also see Magnus deciding that he needs to make a decision that Alec is holding him back from making, which makes more sense to what happened with them in this episode. But anyways, I also see Sebastian holding someone by the throat, which shows that he's very strong, a lot stronger than the typical human, unless he's activating a strength rune or something. But anyways, I also see Clary telling Sebastian that she'll kill Jonathan with her bare hands if he's caught. And she looked really pissed in that moment too. We also see Simon and Maya almost kissing. I also see Luke being thrown into the air. And I also see someone having a hold of Clary's neck from behind. It looks like it's Sebastian himself, but you don't really see a clear shot of his face. And also the last scene shows Isabel finding a bleeding Max in an office at the Institute, which I'm thinking is Alec's office. So there's that. Now, based off the synopsis for 218, out of all that, and I'm getting this from a TV series app from my tablet, it reads that after a devastating attack at the Institute, everyone is on high alert as the Shadowhunters close in on their hunt for Jonathan. Meanwhile, Simon and Maya help a new downworlder as the Seelie Queen demands an answer from Magnus and Luke. So there's that. Now, based off the previews for 218, as they have been released by this point, the first one shows Izzy arriving late to a meeting due to the fact that she can't find Max. We were told that elite guards are the only ones who know where the mortal mirror is now after Clary had given it over to them. We also see Clary knowing that Jonathan will try to get to the mirror, so everyone is on high alert at the Institute, with Alec wanting reports on how to prevent a possible breach by Jonathan and Valentine. Also, we see Izzy briefly checking on Alec in regards to Magnus. Second clip shows Maya cleaning the wounds of a clawed mundane. Luke oversees this, and Simon is also there too. And this is kind of the starting point of how we learn just what happens when new werewolves come into the fold. Like what happens when a mundane is infected by a werewolf type of thing. So there's that. And the third scene shows Alec and Magnus waking up in bed together the next morning with the question of what are you afraid of that Alec asks to Magnus, since Magnus is an all-powerful immortal. So there's that question. So after all that is said and done, do I have any questions after everything? Kind of in a way, based off of the argument between Alec and Magnus in this episode, and the ensuing fight that's kind of previewed in the promo to happen between them. I'm wondering if their scene in bed together is going to be a flashback of some sort, or if they actually managed to make up only to be teared down apart again within the span of an episode. So I'm mixed on how I see about that coming. So there's that. Another question is, are we actually going to see our Shadowhunters figure out the just who Jonathan is impersonating? I'm hoping they figure it out by the end of this episode. Otherwise, they better figure out before the season finale. So there is that. But otherwise, that's pretty much it. But what did you guys think of the episode? What did you guys like about it? What do you think is going to happen next? Let me know in the comments down below. Love to hear your own thoughts, theories, and opinions about what you think is going to happen next. Also, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos if you haven't done so already. If you want, check out my template page. The link for that is down below. I read blog promos, web clips, quotes, gifs, synopses, news, all the good stuff. I'll find in one place, so go check that out. A little behind, but I will catch up. But it's also connected to my WordPress account. Same thing goes. Still work in progress, but I hope you check it out and see what else I'm connected to. But otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your patience. I do apologize for all my little stumbles and slip up. It's really late right now for me. But with all that said, guys, I hope you come back next week to hear what I have to say about the next episode. But until then, this is Mel. Wish you all a great day, great week wherever you are. Bye for now. I really need to sleep.